Hi everyone, it's Diana Layton, Teen Librarian at the Turner Memorial Library in Presque Isle, Maine, here to offer our March Teen Book Talk. This month we're going to be looking at Flygirl by Sherri Smith, and the story follows a young African-American woman in World War II era Louisiana. And if you're looking at your dates, this also means that Ida Mae Jones is the name of her character, and she's living in the Jim Crow South as well. And I chose this book because I'm sure many of you know February is Black History Month, and it's followed immediately after in March by Women's History Month. So to be able to find a book that features an African American woman as the main character, especially with this World War II setting, I felt that that would be a really interesting look at African American history and women's history. So again, the story follows Ida Mae Jones. As we start the story, we find out very quickly that Ida Mae's real passion is flying. It's something that her father did for work as, I believe, a crop duster. And as the story begins, we find out that Ida Mae's father has passed away. World War II has started, and her brother is currently involved as a doctor serving overseas. So at this point, Ida Mae is really spending most of her time cleaning houses with her friend, and there's definitely a lot of sacrifices going on. We learn a lot about rationing of food and supplies for the war effort. But Ida Mae really knows that she has a talent with flying, and she wants to do something more. But there's a lot of challenges in her way, and she's already pretty well aware of some of them. She's attempted to obtain her own flight license and is denied, not on the basis of her skill, but basically because she's a woman. So she's pretty aware of that. But she finds out that there is a private movement to get women involved in flying and participating in the war by transporting planes across the country, and so they need as many talented women as they can. Great. But as Ida Mae starts looking into it more, she realizes that the women participating in this are predominantly white, and in fact, the only non-white participant she sees is an an Asian American woman. So that gives her a little bit of hope, but she realizes that this might be a challenge. And again, we're looking at the Jim Crow South, Jim Crow laws that really separate out society along racial lines. Ida Mae is really self-aware and made more aware through her friends and family that she is a light-skinned African American. And a practice during this time was going on called passing, where basically light-skinned African Americans could pass as white Americans and thus rise above Jim Crow laws. Ida Mae is pretty aware of this practice. She has members of her family who have done this, women who have married white men and not only risen above Jim Crow laws, but also improved their social status and sort of roam around in the upper classes in Louisiana. Now, Ida Mae's mother doesn't agree with this. Basically, out of principle, she feels that it's just a betrayal of their racial identity and really their identity as a whole. So Ida Mae knows this. She kind of hopes she doesn't have to make this call, but right before she enters her interview, she witnesses a scene that makes her well aware that she may have to do this, and surely enough, she does. So she's entering with a falsified flight license. She's taken her father's flight license, placed her own picture on it, and altered information, and then she's passing as white. So there's a lot of suspense involved. Ida Mae's entering training with this secret. We as the reader know this. And although there's a lot of stories and films about the World War II experience, there's definitely something really immediate and intimate about Flygirl. We're really following Ida Mae. We know she has this secret, and so we really have to see all of the very meticulous steps she has to take to keep her identity hidden. And it can be pretty nerve-wracking to read, but also, really gives us a perspective of what Ida Mae is willing to do to participate in the war. That being said, the book does focus mostly on Ida Mae's journey through the training process and a little bit afterwards. We watch as she makes new friends during training, and that also gives us another perspective of women's involvement in World War II. What was motivating these women to get involved. And but there's definitely a lot of action. I mean, it's war, and there's planes and flight, and there's definitely some scary and exhilarating moments. So, there's definitely some action involved, and it definitely keeps things pretty exciting. But again, really focused on how is Ida Mae going to work with this identity issue. Even though she's going through training, she does go home eventually, and that's just such a transition. You've been living for months as a white citizen, and now you go back to your family who know that you're African American and know exactly what you're doing. So we get to see all the different struggles that she has to go through. And yeah, so even though you might know about World War II, and quite a bit about that time, you may not necessarily know about this much about women's participation and even the practice of passing that was going on during the Jim Crow South. So this will definitely catch you up pretty quickly. And if you read it and you enjoy it and you want to read more stories that look at African American women's involvement in World War II, I'll go ahead and recommend a book called Mare's War by Tanita Davis. It's also in our collection. And it's a contemporary story. It follows two sisters. They're on a road trip with their grandmother to a family reunion, and their grandmother tells them stories about her involvement in World War II in the Women's Army Corps. So if you like Flygirl, definitely check that out. And that's about it for this month. So I'll see you guys next month, and have a good one. Thanks.